I'm back and welcome back to, I guess, Catherine's readings. We've got the Brothers Grimm. Today we're going to be reading Bearskin. Found it an interesting story. And there's an illustration for it. It's pretty cool. So actually looks pretty sad, actually. And here we go. So we gonna listen to the story?
Yeah.
Alright, I'll say it loud enough for you, okay? Ready? There was once a young fellow who enlisted as a soldier, conducted himself bravely, and was always the foremost when it rained bullets, so long as the war lasted all went well. But when peace was made, he received his dismissal, and the captain said he might go where he liked. His brothers were dead, and he no longer had a home. So he went to his... his brothers were dead. His parents were dead, and he no longer had a home. So he went to his brothers and begged them to take him in and keep him till war broke out again. The brothers, however, were hard-hearted and said, "What can we do with you? You are no use to us. Go and make a living for yourself." The soldier had nothing left but his gun, so he took that on his shoulder and went forth into the world. He came to a wide heath on which nothing was to be seen but a circle of trees. Under these he sat sorrowfully down and began to think over his fate. "I have no money," thought he, "to be brought hither, paid him, or even put a purse full of gold into the poor." I skipped a whole page. Oh no. I read reader stories. Okay. "I have learnt no trade but that of fighting, and now they have made peace they don't want me any longer. So I see beforehand that I shall have to starve." All at once I heard a rustling, and when he looked around, a strange man stood before him, who wore a green coat and looked right stately, but had a hideous cloven foot. "I already know what you are in need of," said the man. "Gold and possessions shall you have, as much as you can make away with. Do what you will. But first I must know if you are fearless, that I may not bestow my money in vain." "A soldier in fear? How can those two things go together?" he answered. "You can put me to the proof." "Very well, then," answered the man. "Look behind you." The soldier turned around and saw a large bear which came growling towards him. "Oh ho!" cried the soldier. "I will tickle your nose for you, so that you shall soon lose your fancy for growling." And he aimed at the bear and shot it through the muzzle. It fell down and never stirred again. "I see quite well," said the stranger, "that you are not wanting in courage. But there's still another condition which you have to fulfill." "If it does not endanger my salvation," replied the soldier, who knew very well who was standing by him. "If it does, I will have nothing to do with it." "You will look to that for yourself," answered Greencoat. You shall for the next 7 years neither wash yourself, nor comb your beard, nor your hair, nor cut your nails, nor once say the Lord's Prayer. I will give you a coat and a cloak, during which this time you must wear. If you die during these 7 years, you are mine. If you remain alive, you are free and rich to boot for all the rest of your life." The soldier thought of the great extremity in which he now found himself, and as he so often had gone to meet death, he resolved to risk it now also, and agreed to the terms. The devil took off his green coat and gave it to the soldier, and said, "If you have this coat on your back, and put your hand in the pocket, you shall always find it full of money." Then he pulled the skin off the bear, and said, "This shall be your cloak, and your bed also, for thereon shall you sleep, and in no other bed shall you lie, and because of this apparel shall you be called Bearskin." Whereupon the devil vanished. You okay, baby? I'll put the aircon on, Papa. It's a bit warm. That's what you get for living in cans, I guess.
It's too hot.
Yeah, it's a bit too hot. I'll put the aircon on for you.
It's too warm.
Yeah, I put the aircon to make it cold. I'm not going to freeze you.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
Why would I freeze Amy?
Yes.
I would never. The soldier put the coat on, felt at once in his pocket, and found that the thing was really true. Then he put on the bearskin and went forth into the world and enjoyed himself, refraining from nothing that did him good and his money harm. During the first year his appearance was passable, but during the second he began to look like a monster. His hair covered the nearly whole of his face, his beard was like that of a coarse felt, his fingers had claws, and his face was so covered with dirt that if cress had been sown on it, it would have come up. Whoever saw him ran away, but as he everywhere gave the poor money to pray that he might not die during the 7 years, and as he paid well for everything, he still always found shelter. In the 4th year he had entered an inn where the landlord would not receive him, and would not even let him have a place in the stable, because he was afraid the horses would be scared. But as Bearskin thrust his hands into his pocket and pulled out a handful of ducats, the host let himself be persuaded, and gave him room in an outhouse. Bearskin, however, was obliged to promise not to let himself be seen, lest the inn should get a bad name. As Bearskin was sitting alone in the evening, and wishing from the bottom of his heart that the 7 years were over, he heard a loud lamenting in a neighbouring room. He had a compassionate heart, so he opened the door and saw an old man weeping bitterly, and wringing his hands. Bearskin went nearer, but the man sprang to his feet and tried to escape from him. At last, when the man perceived that Bearskin's voice was human, he let himself be prevailed upon, and by kind words Bearskin succeeded so far that the old man revealed the cause of his grief. His property had dwindled away by degrees. He and his daughters will have to starve, and he was so poor that he could not pay the innkeeper and was to be put in prison. "If that is your only trouble," said Bearskin, "I have plenty of money." He caused the innkeeper to be brought thither, paid him, and even put a purse full of gold into the poor old man's pocket. When the old man saw himself set free of all his troubles, he did not know how to show his gratitude. "Come with me," said he to Bearskin. "My daughters are all miracles of beauty. Choose one of them for yourself as a wife. When she hears what you have done for me, she will not refuse you. You do in truth look a little strange, but she'll soon put you to rights again." This pleased Bearskin well, and he went. When the oldest saw him, she was so terribly alarmed at his face that she screamed and ran away. The second stood still and looked at him from head to foot, and then she said, I'm just imagining her going like this. Nah. It's like, never. And she'd be like, nah. Oh yeah, she goes like this. Hilarity, I guess. How can I accept a husband who no longer has a human form? That shaven bear that was once here and passed itself off for a man pleased me better. For any rate, it wore a hustler's dress and white gloves. If he were only ugly, I might get used to that. The youngest, however, said, Dear father, that must be a good man to have helped you out of your trouble. So if you have promised him a bride for doing so, your promise must be kept. It was a pity that Bearskin's face was covered with dirt and with hair, for if they had not, you might see how delighted he was when he heard those words. He took a ring from his finger, broke it in two, and gave her one half. The other half he kept for himself. Then he wrote his name on her half and hers on his, and begged her to keep her peace carefully. Then he took his leave and said, I must still wander for about 3 years, and if I do not return then you are free, for I shall be dead. But pray to God to preserve my life. The poor betrothed bride dressed herself entirely in black, and when she thought of her future bridegroom, tears came into her eyes. Nothing but contempt and mockery fell to her lot from her sisters. Take care, said the oldest. If you were to give him your hand, he would strike his claws into it. Beware, said the second. Bears like sweet things. If he takes a fancy to you, he will eat you up. Am I going to eat you up, Sammy?
No.
Oh, so yummy. Yummy, baby. Nom, 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 nom.
Good.
You must always do as he likes, began the older one, or else he'll growl. And the second continued, but the wedding will be a merry one, for bears dance well. The bride was silent and did not let them vex her. Bearskin, however, travelled around the world from one place to another, did good where he was able, and gave generously to the poor, so that we might pray for him. At length, as the last day of the 7 years dawned, he went once more out onto the heath, seated himself beneath the circle of trees. It was not long before the wind whistled, and the devil stood before him and looked angry at him. Then he threw Bearskin his old coat and asked for his own green one back. We have not got so far as that yet, answered Bearskin. You must first make me clean. Whether the devil liked it or not, he was forced to fetch water and wash Bearskin, comb his hair and cut his nails. After this, he looked like a brave soldier and was much more handsome than he had ever been before. When the devil had gone away, Bearskin was quite light-hearted. He went into town, put on a magnificent velvet coat, seated himself in a carriage drawn by 5 white horses, and drove to his bride's house. No one recognized him. The father took him for a distinguished general and led him into the room where his daughters were sitting. He was forced to place himself between the 2 eldest, who helped him to wine, gave him the best pieces of meat, and thought that in all the world they had never seen a handsome man. The bride, however, sat opposite to him in her black dress, and never raised her eyes, nor spoke a word. When at length he asked the father if he would give him one of his daughters to wife, the 2 eldest jumped up, ran into their bedrooms to put on splendid dresses, for each of them fancied she was the chosen one. The stranger, as soon as he was alone with his bride, brought out his half of the ring, threw it into a glass of wine, which he then handed across the table to her. She took the wine, but when she had drunk it, she found the other ring lying in the bottom. Her heart began to beat. She got the other half, which she had worn on a ribbon around her neck, joined them, and saw that the 2 pieces fitted exactly together. Then said he, I am your betrothed bridegroom, whom you saw as Bearskin, but through God's grace I have once again received my human form, and once again have become clean. He went up to her, embraced her, and gave her a kiss. In the meantime, the 2 sisters came back in full dress, and when they saw that the handsome man had fallen into the share of the youngest, and heard that he was Bearskin, they ran out full of anger and rage. One of them drowned herself in the well, and the other hanged herself on a tree. In the evening, someone knocked on the door, and when the bridegroom opened it, it was the devil in his green coat, who had said, "You see, I have now got 2 souls in the place of your one." Okay, here's some questions here. So you missed out on a dude, and you go and kill yourselves? Like, how desperate are you? Like, full on, how desperate do you have to be to off yourself when you don't get what you want? That's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Or maybe the devil had something to do with it. Or maybe they made a deal with the devil. Who knows? Oh, I wish we understood more about that. Next I'll be redoing the Sammy. Alright, see ya.